In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the steering column bearing on your Chevy Express 2500. This is going to be located on the steering column. This will be located under the dash. Let's get started. Using a 14mm wrench, we're going to loosen the jam nut for our negative terminal. Remove the bolt for the terminal and push it out of the way. We're going to install a steering wheel holder into our vehicle. This is just a prop rod. I'm going to put it and make it so the steering wheel can't really turn. If you don't have a prop rod, you can just take your seat belt and run it through the bottom of the steering wheel and run it over to your buckle and buckle it, and just make it so that the steering wheel cannot let go and spin on its own. We have two more 10mm bolts on the driver's side. One's going to be right here. Ours is missing. And one more in the corner right here. Pull the panel straight forward, popping all the clips, and remove it. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove the 4 nuts for our knee bolster. There's going to be 2 on each side. We have 2 more on the other side. Remove the bolster from the vehicle. And you may have a zip tie on one of your tabs. Cut the cable tie off of the harness and remove the knee bolster. Using a 15mm socket, we're going to remove the 2 nuts for our steering column bracket. We're going to pull that bracket down and out of the way. Remove the connector for the steering angle sensor. Push on the tab, pull straight back. Remove the connector. That's your tab you're going to push on. Pull the boot down off of that black trim piece. We're going to spin that boot upside down, and this is going to give us access to our bolt. Using a 15mm wrench to hold the nut. Use a 13mm wrench to remove the bolt. Remove the bolt and the nut. We are in the engine bay, looking at right behind the steering wheel, and we're going to have 3 7mm bolts to remove this boot. There's 2 on each side and then 1 on the top. Go around and remove the 3 screws. Separate the boot from the firewall. We're going to use a crayon and we're going to mark our steering shaft. Now we know when we reinstall, we want to line up our yellow mark with our yellow mark. Using an 11mm socket, loosen the bolt for the intermediate shaft. Remove the bolt. Using a 13mm socket, we're going to remove the 3 nuts for our steering shaft bracket. Remove all 3 nuts. Now that we have our bracket nice and loose, we're going to pull down on our intermediate steering shaft and remove our steering column shaft. Pull straight out and remove that shaft. Now we have that steering shaft removed, we can remove our boot. Using a 7mm socket, we're going to remove the bolt for our connector. Remove the bolt and the connector. Looking up under the dash, we're going to remove our shift cable from our lever. Just going to use a pry tool and pop that off. I'm going to use a trim tool and I'm going to pop this clip off out of the shift cable. And on either side, you have a push tab for these cables. Remove the cable from the steering column. Remove the orange lock from the connector. Push on that top tab and remove the connector. I'm using a bungee cord going around my steering wheel, which is attached to a cable tie on the steering rack. And I'm using this to hold my steering wheel while I'm going to be removing the column. Using a 15mm socket, we're going to remove the 2 nuts for our steering column. I'm going to leave this nut on finger tight Once we remove this other one, the steering column is going to be ready to come down. Get a hand on your steering column and push it up and remove the 2 nuts. When we remove this steering column, we do not want the steering wheel to move. Try and not let it move as best as you can. And remove the steering column. Here we have our steering column on the floor, and we're going to pop this plastic boss off using a trim tool. Just get under the tabs and pop it up. Now we have our steering angle sensor right here. We're going to use a paper clip, and we have a hole right here through the back of this grommet. This is for our steering angle sensor. We're going to drop this pin in all the way through, and that'll lock our steering angle sensor so it cannot become unsprung or lose position when we remove it from the steering column. Using a small trim tool, we're going to pop that assembly up and off of the steering wheel. Just to double check myself, I'm going to put 2 markings, one on the steering angle sensor and one on my steering column shaft. Remove the sensor and remove the bearing. Install the new steering column bearing. You may need to help that tab along. Get the bearing fully seated. Install the steering angle sensor. Remove the paper clip. Install the plastic cap. And get those 3 clips seated. And now we're ready to reinstall our steering column. Install the steering column into the vehicle. Install the steering column into place and get the nuts started. Snug the nuts down. Grab the shift cable and install it into the bracket. Make sure those 2 clips are clipped in. Install your lock. Install the shift cable onto the lever. Install the connector. Make sure you get this installed nice and square. I'm going to get this bolt started by hand. Snug the bolt down. Install the connector. Push until you hear a click. If you don't hear a click, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the orange lock through the front of the connector. We're going to get our steering column boot lined up on the inside. We want it covering that hole to the firewall, because our next step is going out there and installing the intermediate shaft. So we're going to have to come back here and pull this boot back down, so don't get it fully clipped in to this bossman on top. Here we are in our engine bay. We have our steering column shaft right here. Our steering column shaft is keyed so it can only go one way. There will be a bump out on one side, and we're going to line up our 2 marks. We're going to install our pinch bolt. Get it started by hand, snug it down, and get it nice and tight. Put that cover up into place. Install the 3 screws and snug them down. Install the 3 nuts onto the bracket. Snug the nuts down, get them nice and tight. Here we are under the dash. We're going to get our bolt started for our intermediate shaft. Get the nut started on the back side. Torque the intermediate shaft bearing bolt to 22 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench on it, do the best you can. Install the boot. Make sure it sits in the clips on the plastic. Install the connector for the steering angle sensor. Push until you hear a click. If you don't, give it a pull. Make sure it's locked on. Install the bracket. Install the nuts onto the bracket. Snug the nuts down. Torque the steering column nuts to 22 foot-pounds. Do the same thing for the top 2 column nuts. Torque them to 22 foot-pounds. We're going to remove our bungee cord, install the knee bolster into the vehicle, get the nuts started on both sides, torque the knee bolster nuts to 15 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench on it, do the best you can. Do the same thing on the other side. We're going to cable tie our harness back to our knee bolster. Clip the tail off. Install the trim piece into place. Push and fully seat it. Install the 10mm bolts on bottom. We only have one. Get the bolts started by hand and snug it down. If you have the one for the other side, go ahead and do that now. Install the negative battery cable. Get the bolt through it. Snug down the bolt and the jam nut. Get it nice and snug, and you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.